From getting signed after 8 gigs to hiring a keyboard player that couldn't play keys, it took Radiohead a lot longer than you'd think to become the prolific musicians they are today. Being in a band like Radiohead is the dream of many high school-aged musicians who yearn to find like-minded band members and begin making and performing music. Radiohead themselves are the perfect inspiration for aspiring musicians in this position, as they first got together in high school. As the Sydney Morning Herald mentions, Radiohead all attended a boys' school named Abingdon in Oxford, England. Lead vocalist Thom Yorke was something of an outcast at the time, being bullied over problems with his eye. However, in 1985, he got together with bandmates Ed O'Brien, Philip Selway, and Colin Greenwood, and they started playing music, quickly impressing his bandmates.
It's always been incredibly prolific as well, which was, it's very impressive in a 34-year-old, but especially in a 16-year-old.
Back in the 1980s, the group wasn't yet Radiohead, going instead by the name of On a Friday. According to an old Guitar World article, the name was chosen purely because this was when the members got together to rehearse in their school music rooms. 2 years after first getting together, On a Friday had their first ever live performance, playing a gig at Oxford's Jericho Tavern. In addition to the 4 original members, Colin Greenwood's younger brother Jonny also performed with them, playing harmonica. However, it would be some time before he became an official member of the group. Jonny Greenwood was the last of Radiohead's 5 members to join up, but it wasn't his first musical project either. As BuzzFeed explains, Jonny was originally in a band called Illiterate Hands, fronted by Thom Yorke's younger brother Andy. Andy is an accomplished singer and songwriter in his own right, and his band The Unbelievable Truth was even featured in a 1998 MTV article. However, his sound was vastly different from the aesthetic that would eventually lead Radiohead to stardom. Jonny's first stage performance with Thom Yorke's band may have been with a harmonica, but he eventually joined the others as a keyboard player. In an interview for NPR, he mentions how he got the opportunity because the band's original keyboardist didn't get along with the band, so they hired Jonny as a replacement. There was just one small problem at the time. Jonny Greenwood couldn't actually play the keyboard. In a classic example of fake it till you make it, Jonny actually attended months of rehearsals with his keyboard switched off. Since his bandmates were playing so loudly, they didn't even notice the absence of his playing while he gradually learned the instrument at night. First released in 1992, Creep was Radiohead's breakout single. However, an article from Mojo says the band wasn't especially fond of it, sharing a rumor that Jonny's famous guitar crunches before the chorus was an attempt to ruin a song that he didn't like. The single version of Creep was recorded in just one take and only reached number 78 in the UK charts. Far Out magazine explains that Creep was blacklisted by the BBC's Radio 1 for being, quote, too depressing. The BBC itself, which was one of the primary platforms for musicians in the UK to get their music circulated, also claims that the numerous swear words throughout the song were also considered unacceptable to air. The song was re-released in 1993 with some of the profanity removed. From there, the clean version of the track managed to reach number 7 on the UK charts. According to Rolling Stone, Thom Yorke says he's not too satisfied with the lyrics either, calling them, quote, pretty crap. Despite this, Creep eventually launched Radiohead's success in America, with a San Francisco radio station naming the song its favorite of the year.
Folks, please welcome one of our favorites, Radiohead!
The song eventually became a source of so much disdain for the band that they started to grow sick of it. Yorke began to noticeably freeze up in interviews when Creep was mentioned, and Radiohead even started refusing to play it in concerts. According to Uncut, after getting requests to play it from an audience in Montreal, the band responded, "F off, we're tired of it." Radiohead's second album, The Bends, contains some of the band's most iconic tracks, including the song High and Dry. This song, however, was not written for Radiohead, but for another band. In 1989, Thom Yorke played with a punk band named Headless Chickens while at university. A YouTube video shows a recording of a Headless Chickens gig, in which Yorke plays the song High and Dry, albeit in a very different style to the laid-back acoustic guitar-driven track that Radiohead would later record. The thing is, at the time, Radiohead didn't really exist yet. While the band had gotten together a few years before, they were still performing as On a Friday. As an archived 2008 article from Q Magazine explains, the band didn't choose the name Radiohead until they signed a record deal with EMI in 1991. High and Dry isn't the only song that's technically older than Radiohead by this metric either. As Rolling Stone reports, Thom Yorke also wrote Creep while he was in college. In addition to being the site of the first On a Friday performance, Oxford's Jericho Tavern was also where Radiohead signed their first record deal with EMI, according to Q magazine. The deal took place on December 21, 1991, essentially kicking off the long musical careers of everyone in the band. The interesting part is, while they were playing as a group for 5 years, they had only played a total of 8 gigs. Part of the reason for this is that the members all put music on hold for 4 years to go to college. According to Guitar World, they didn't give a single live performance for the entire time they were studying. This is not to say, however, that they didn't spend any time playing music. As an old article by The New Yorker explains, Radiohead members continued to get together on weekends to practice in an attempt to figure out what style of music best suited them. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the internet was still fairly new and just beginning to gain popularity. As Pitchfork explains, Radiohead connected with the chaotic early web users, as they were one of the first bands to have a website. Not that they used it much. Instead, the band's online presence relied heavily on fan-made websites like At Ease, Follow Me Around, and Green Plastic. As fellow trailblazer for contemporary internet culture, Bo Burnham poignantly reflects in his special Inside, most of the internet was made on free homepage sites and chat rooms at the time, and Radiohead found a lot of popularity among that early generation of people who liked to spend their free time online. The group's expansive online fanbase was a factor in its decision to give its fourth album, Kid A, an online live stream before its release in 2000. In the 2020s, pre-release live streams are nothing unusual, but according to Grantland, Radiohead's live stream for Kid A essentially pioneered the tactic. The stream used a player that any website could embed, and fans loved it. Over 1,000 sites posted Kid A, which received over 400,000 streams. This is an impressive feat, considering only 413 million people were using the internet at the time. The pre-release stream was probably part of what helped Kid A eventually reach #1 on US album charts, even though the album itself certainly didn't meet universal love.
You got half a star on Billboard, and then you got a 2-page cover in Time that says Radiohead is God.
After Radiohead's contract with EMI ended, the group made another record industry first with the release of their 7th studio album. In Rainbows was self-released online using a pay-what-you-want model, even for those who wanted to pay nothing. Only 38% of people who downloaded In Rainbows paid anything at all. It was also shared widely on BitTorrent, getting downloaded 2.3 million times in the first 24 days after its release. The most remarkable thing about all of this is that it was still a resounding success. In an interview with Wired just 2 months after the release of In Rainbows, Thom Yorke said that in terms of digital income, In Rainbows made more than all of Radiohead's previous albums put together. Since their contract was signed before the internet achieved widespread popularity, EMI hadn't been paying them at all for digital sales. According to Rolling Stone, Thom Yorke has remained deeply skeptical of major labels ever since, describing them as a, quote, sinking ship. Radiohead's drummer Philip Selway is deeply humanitarian. An article in The Independent explains how he volunteered with the charity Samaritans for 20 years, first as a listening volunteer, receiving phone calls from people in need, then as an appointed ambassador, acting as a champion for mental health and well-being. Most astonishingly, he did all of this while also raising a family, drumming for Radiohead, and pursuing other musical projects. He reasons that it helps to keep him humble. Putting others first was Selway's means of avoiding the narcissism that can easily arise while playing in any band, let alone one as monolithic as Radiohead. Even now, Selway is an active supporter of charities. He announced on Twitter that he would present the 2022 awards for the charity St. Martin's Challenge, which provides grants to society's most vulnerable people. Organized by a charity, it's a non-profit event, and all proceeds go towards supporting Samaritans. After spending some time with Radiohead's members, an interviewer at Spin observed, everyone in this band probably reads more than you do. Hanging out with Radiohead is kind of like getting high with a bunch of librarians. Of the 5 erudite musicians, though, Colin Greenwood is particularly literary, having studied post-war American writers like Raymond Carver while at university, according to an article in Mojo. As Time mentions, Thom Yorke once quipped that Greenwood had probably downloaded enough books to fill a library. In fact, Greenwood is such an enthusiastic reader that the same Spin magazine article mentions that he talked about 15 different books during the course of a single interview before giving one to the interviewer as a gift. It seems that Colin enjoys reading poetry as well as prose, as in 2004, he was on the panel of judges for a poetry competition, Next Generation Poets, organized by the Poetry Book Society and funded by Arts Council England, according to NME. The Guide magazine reported that he even brought the poems he was judging on tour to look them over in his downtime. Evidently, he enjoyed being part of the panel enough that he returned for a different poetry competition in 2007. Across the many styles of music Radiohead emulates, the originality of their songs sticks out. Part of the reason behind the band's distinct style is that Thom Yorke has a mild form of synesthesia, a neurological condition that causes sensory perceptions to become mixed. People with synesthesia may be able to taste colors, hear shapes, or see music. In a 2019 radio interview, Yorke stresses that while he isn't fully synesthetic, when music is particularly powerful, he gets a quote, almost visual sensation. In an older interview for MTV Japan, Yorke also mentioned that he could smell tunes and see them as colors. He described the Radiohead album OK Computer as being a mucky white, like Tip-X, a European brand of correction fluid. This distinct look is reflected in the album's cover artwork. On a related note, The Guardian reports that Radiohead's album Kid A was influenced by music from Aphex Twin, another well-known artist with synesthesia. Radiohead in turn has gone on to influence other synesthete artists like Melissa McCracken, who makes paintings based on the colors and shapes she sees when listening to music. Several of her paintings show Radiohead songs, including Videotape, Spinning Plates, and Weird Fishes. In 2015, Radiohead was commissioned to write a theme song for the James Bond movie Spectre. As Rolling Stone writes, this had the unfortunate effect of throwing off the momentum the band had built while trying to record their most recent album, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Radiohead's producer, Nigel Godrich, described the song as a huge waste of energy that dragged tracking for the album to a dead stop.
That all sounds lovely.
In the end, as BBC News reports, the band's song was rejected and Sam Smith's song, Writings on the Wall, was chosen in its place. So Radiohead uploaded their song Spectre to SoundCloud on December 25, 2015. Despite the disruption the song caused, there were evidently no hard feelings, as the upload was accompanied by a caption reading, "It didn't work out, but became something of our own, which we love very much." Longtime fans of Radiohead are used to the group taking extended pauses between albums, so it was no great surprise in 2020 when NME reported that its members were taking some time apart. The band's hiatus was announced in the midst of several solo projects, including a soundtrack for the film Suspiria and some classical compositions Thom Yorke was working on. The band members are determined, however, that they aren't done working together as Radiohead. Guitarist Ed O'Brien spoke with NME, saying that they were definitely going to make another album, with a caveat that he was unsure when. The band had actually planned to go on tour in 2021, but was forced to cancel because of the coronavirus pandemic. Thom Yorke in particular was rather more blunt about his intention to make another Radiohead album, according to Rolling Stone. When he was asked if A Moon-Shaped Pool would be Radiohead's final album, he replied, "I hope not." When Radiohead might return to the recording studio is currently anyone's guess, but fans can rest assured that they haven't heard the last of the group. In O'Brien's words, "When it feels right to plug back into Radiohead, then we will."